So this past month, I have sketched and drawn in my sketchbook for a full month, for the full month of June. And that's what I'm going to be talking about today. But very quickly, if you're new here, my name's Reese, and my background is in graphic design. I went to art school for graphic design. I've taught workshops and classes in drawing and sketchbooking, and nature sketchbooking specifically. And I have drawn my whole life. In my work life, I have something that's graphic arts adjacent. So that's a little bit of a background about me. I've always drawn and painted. So because I have done a sketchbook challenge this past month, I'm going to be going into the details of my final couple of weeks. I'm going to do a glimpse at the work that we did the first part of June. And if you need more detail, you can go back to that video I did a couple weeks ago, and you can see more detail about those early pages. But I'll give you a quick glimpse since this is kind of like an overview of the whole month. And then I'm going to go into more details about my final 2 weeks in this challenge. So this is the end of this challenge for this time. But I wrote something here at the front. I'll tell you what I wrote. I like writing little sayings now and then, just to keep me mentally straight, I guess. And it says, "You are a mere whisper, and in a moment you will be gone. Be a gentle, good, and kind whisper, so that your presence will matter and be heard." And that's just really a reminder of how short life is, and to be kind and realize how precious and short your life is. As most of you have already seen that been with me here, these were the ending pages of some of last year's challenge. So there were all of those. And then I started off this June. Right before June, I decided to do this cover just to kind of start off the challenge, and I was getting ready for it. And then I started off with an intention, which was discovery and growth. And I set a theme for the first week of just random things. And I did clouds and trees in both pages. I did trees both in one color and regular watercolor, and usually I use a combination of watercolor. I really like Amgram paints, so I often use those, and some gouache. And these are just some vines. I did the prompt was leaves, and I'm studying Korean, so and I've been to Korea a couple times, and I have actually sketchbook challenges you can go back and watch on some of the work I did when I was in Korea on this channel. But I've been writing on my pages some of the words as a way to help me expand my my dictionary, my words that I have, my vocabulary of words in Korean. So I've been doing that as well. This was like a little cup that I did. So that prompt was cup, a tea bag, a toy, this was something a friend of mine had crocheted. That was really a cute and precious gift. I did my bird, Scooby, which he's been on here a little bit. I did a plant, this is just a pittosporum plant right outside of my front door. Some pears from the grocery store. This was a reference photo I took, but I really did not end up loving my results on that page. This was just a random cloth that I threw on my table to paint a still life of, which is a really good exercise. If you're not comfortable painting and something doesn't have to be too exact, but yet you can put it all sorts of different ways and study values and how color balances from tables and from surface of itself back and forth, and how light and the values all affect your various results that you can get. So that could be a bit of fun. So that can be actually a bit of fun doing that practice. Then I did a stilt, which this is a bird, and this is a long, this particular bird is a long leg stilt, which we have stilts, but not this particular stilt here in Florida. So this was something I just grabbed randomly off of the internet somewhere, and just to play with that particular bird, because I couldn't find one of my own references of the version of the stilt that we have. Then this was a place in the woods. This was one of my own references. I love going out into the woods, into nature, and just painting nature. And then this was the last thing I did before the final 2 weeks began, which is a reflection of water. So it's a reflection of this plants. We have a lot of mangroves over on the coast of Florida, and I was over there and I was taking pictures, and I had this reference photo of that reflection. So I did that for that prompt. So now here are my final 2 weeks that we're about to go into here. So I did Spanish needles. Now I had 2 prompts. I had a prompt for flowers and a prompt for a plant. And I think that I changed them because I've been publishing my prompts on my Patreon website. So I'm also Reese Osborne Studios on Patreon and on Instagram. And so I had been providing some prompts for the June Sketchbook Challenge. They're still there if you're looking for any prompts. But I did not do it for, I did not do it for my very final week. But for this week I did. But I interchanged them too, because I started off doing this as my plant prompt. But then I realized I really loved how much those flowers just kind of stuck out and sung. I'll show you this up close so you can kind of see. It actually turned out to be even better than I thought it was going to be, and I really loved it. So this was in watercolor. So the white areas is just negative space. That's just area that has no paint on it, except for a couple little touches to provide some value shifts on the petals. And then I was showing here how many colors I was using, because this particular week I was really trying to focus on a more limited palette. But we kind of consider these weeds, but technically in the biology world there are no weeds. There's just plants that people like and people don't like. And so when you go to a nursery, you're not going to find Spanish needles, but we grow them here, or we don't grow them. They grow everywhere here. But the reason why they're called Spanish needles is the plant has seeds that are these tiny little spiky black things that look like little black needles. They don't hurt or anything, but they're easy to get on you and stuff, and they're just kind of present. And they're little clusters, but the little daisy-like flowers are really adorable. So then the next day I did a prompt of book, which in Korean is check. So these are the pens that I use, and I was planning on using them from the get-go because I've seen a lot of people playing with these, and I thought, well, that might be fun, just something to have in, your purse or something, your little pen case. If you're out and about and you need some color and you don't have time for watercolor or paint or whatever, it's a way to add a little bit of extra color to your work. They're very inexpensive. And of course, these are the pens where you push down and you get all these variations of colors. And it comes in a 3-pack like this. This is just a big pen, And although it's funny because there's 2 pinks and 2 purples in this set, but then you get an orange and a yellow and a blue and a green. So some cool little variety here, but that's what I chose to do. But I only ended up using the blue and the green for the most part, and some black. And I got confused because I did some of this actually while sitting on the couch. I had taken, I started off with using, I sat down and I drew out my reference, and then I took a picture of it, and then I sat on the couch and was playing with all the colors and stuff. But so my shadow has a little bit more blue in it, but they turned out all in all pretty good. It was interesting to play with that option. And then, so this is a reference photo I took of some ice cream. So when I was in Korea, my friend and I went out and about, and we got this massive, and I can't understate how big this thing, I mean, it must have been, I don't know, it was huge. This massive ice cream bowl of berries and ice cream, and I don't know, there was all sorts of things in there, but it was delicious, but we shared it. And and sometimes she watches these, so she'll recognize this special treat. 안녕하세요, 친구. Hello, my friend. So that was a bit of fun, and it's funny in Korean. Wrote it right here. Ice cream is ice cream. It's ice cream. Ice cream. Ice cream. So it was fun, and I used. It was a good prompt for having a limited palette, and then again, kind of just like even just to get the balance of the light, because this bowl was like a metal bowl, and I just used variations on gray tones, some nice gray watercolor that I had, Payne's gray, I think, for the most part, and maybe some lamp black, which I only like put one down here, so it might just be just lamp black, to be honest with you. And then I made sure that I had a shadow for the bowl, and then there was just the store behind it, but I just kind of emptied it out. And then for fun, I splattered some red on my page although it looks like maybe I cut my finger, but it was a wonderful memory on a beautiful day with my friend at a very special place. We went to this amazing place. We went to this place that has all kinds of beautiful Korean buildings, and it is a place where a lot of Korean dramas are filmed, historical Korean dramas. I love this place so much. It's so beautiful, and now that I've been there, it's so fun to go back and see it actually shown in some of the dramas I see, and some of the ones that I have seen in the past. If I go back and I rewatch anything and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's where we were. I know exactly where it is. So it's kind of a fun memory, and this particular page commemorates that day. Every time you do something in your sketchbook, it's like even if you are just drawing from a reference book, it's a way to go back and be in a place again. And that's definitely true if you do something when you're out in the field, whether it be an urban sketch or it be something in the woods, nature journaling, which is something I really love doing, or nature sketching. So this is where I switched out my prompt for plant, and I did not care for the results. And partially why the results is because I did do a limited palette. I only wanted to stay within green, ochre, and black tones. And what this was I went to work recently, and I got out, and the gravel in the parking lot was, underneath me when I stood out, and I noticed this beautiful patch of clover leaves that had creeped out of a crack, and I thought they were so beautiful, although I way did not do them justice. But it met the prompt for the day. So it looks a little weird not knowing what it is, not knowing the story, I feel. But, you know, these sketchbook challenge are just for growth and exploration. I tried to make some of them because I did feel like without spending a lot of time, I was going to lose the shapes of the leaves. So I started using some of my ink pen to kind of outline some of the shapes a little bit. And there's a variation that I actually kind of like the variation in the pen widths a bit, but it's on my okay list. And then this is a landscape, and I did it all in monotone. So this definitely meets a limited palette prompt. And this is one of my favorite places, in the woods. And it's funny, even though I've done tons of landscapes, every time you do a landscape, you learn something different, you know, or every time you do a painting, or every time you do a drawing, every time you do problem solving. And that's really what drawing and painting is all about, is problem solving. And learning how to utilize your materials to describe a place visually and aesthetically and emotionally, a place, an experience, that sort of thing. And so this is one of my very favorite locations. I go in the wintertime here in Florida to just sit and draw. I often will put up my hammock in this area, and I used to go with my beautiful pup, my German Shepherd Sasha, and hang up my hammock, and we would sit out here after hiking out here and sit, and I'd have like a warm cup of tea with me, and we would just hang out and do all sorts of variations of sketches and drawings in my sketchbook that I use when I go out in the field. But anyways, I had this reference photo, and I thought, well, let me use this. I think this would be fun. And every time I do something from these special places, I love spending the time back here, focusing on the imagery and how I feel about this particular place. So one of the biggest things that I brought to the problem solving was how where I was, there's lots of like palm trees or pine trees, lots of tall grass. But in the distance, there was a line of grass that was really lit just as a boundary between that and the trees. And so I resolved it by kind of just using a variation in heights and just left it almost white back there, which I ended up really liking. And I like just the way that it merged into the trees as an expression of the grass back there. But what I've been using for this type of a drawing, for this monotone color, this warm tone, is this walnut ink, the drawing ink, which I love quite a bit. I've had it for a while. This is Tom Norton's original light fast, water soluble, acid-free drawing ink, and it's made from walnut hulls, I believe is how walnut ink is made. But it's water soluble, so it's kind of like the way watercolor is. And I really like it a lot, and I've been using it a lot recently for some landscapes that I've been working on in this monotone color. So I really like it, and I like the product, and I like the fact that it is water soluble, like my watercolors. Although, I mean, I might use some other inks eventually too, but so far this has been my favorite as far as just using it on a brush or on a pen. So I actually got a glass pen, and I'll show you. I got a glass pen recently just to play with, although you can get different nibs on these. This one wasn't very expensive at all. I just thought, well, let me get one to play. So that's what I got, and I think I might have used, I can't remember. I know I used it on one of my drawings that I did for the sketchbook challenge, but there is that to play with if you're looking for something different. I also think this would be a great gift for somebody. They come in different colors and different styles, and that would be something, if you know somebody who loves doing drawing or calligraphy or something, it might be something fun, or for yourself. That's certainly why I bought it, was just for moi, and that's perfectly fine. So I've used ink before, but this is a nice variation if you're looking for something different to do. The next day was boat. So I did this. I had a reference image from a place in St. Augustine. There was a boat on the river in St. Augustine, and I've been trying to be very loose, so I did not spend too much time in all the details of this boat that I could have got myself into, including the water itself. But I think all in all, for a quick sketchbook challenge, it turned out pretty good. Now this one, I actually had planned to do something else. It was another pair of scissors. So my mom, who passed away a few years ago, she has these black old scissors, and that's what I was planning on doing for this page. And I actually had to hold off because I was trying to look for my scissors, and I could not find those scissors anywhere in the house. So I did this towards the end. I held the page and ended up doing it towards the very end of my challenge, and I just used these scissors that I use for embroidery. They look like a crane, and I did that very quickly. So, but all in all, met that challenge. Now this is one of my, move that out of the way. This is one of my very favorite things that I did for this challenge. Again, using my walnut oil and a little bit of black watercolor. And this is one of my reference photos of a tree in Korea. So in Korea, they have their national tree is a Korean red pine. If you're familiar with Florida, we have a particular pine tree in our scrub ecosystems called a sand pine. And they kind of remind me of those in a way. But the Korean trees get quite large, like our larger pine trees that we have here. And but they also are very curvy. And they have this red tone to it. Thus, it's called the Korean red pine. It's, like I said, it's their national tree. And when you see this tree in certain lights, boy, it glows. It glows like the way red clay glows. It's so beautiful. And it goes through variations of gray tones and clay-like tones on the bark itself. Of course, the branches, the pine needles are green, but I was keeping this to a monotone because like I said, I've been really into the walnut oil recently, and I really enjoyed this so much. Although I have yet to do it justice just yet, and the walnut is not really as appropriate for that particular color. I did use a little bit of my like sienna type colors that I have in my watercolors as well to help me indicate that it had that red to it. So there was that. I really enjoyed this so much. Pinus densiflora, that's the genus and species. And in Korean it's sunamu, or sonamu. Sonamu just means pine tree, to be honest with you. And then, because I also love, in Korea, I love all the magpies. They have a ton of magpies in Korea. They're called kachi in Korean. And I had some pictures of these various kachis, or the magpies, in different pine trees and stuff. But none of them were exactly the way I wanted it. And so what I did was, this is a compilation of some of my reference photos. And then I kind of use my imagination as well. And then I use a bit of online references. and I found like a head that I liked and a body that I kind of liked, and I switched things around a little bit, made it where his little leg was on this tree branch, and again, trying to capture those red tones in the tree. But he was fun doing. But yeah, this is a compilation of something from my imagination, just using reference photos. And then for the next day, used another reference photo, but this is a local reference photo. And if you've seen some of my other videos, maybe you saw recently, I went out back in the spring. I went out and there was a tree that was covered in pink lichen. And I took one of those reference photos, and I thought, well, let me get back into these pop-up pens. And I just used, I actually did not use red, which I sampled here. I just used black and pink for this particular sketch. And it was just a close-up. I did this on my couch. Now, what I will say about using this pen, even though it's super convenient, and the fact that I could just, just have a few things and sit on my couch and sketch this for my sketchbook challenge, it took a while. I worked on it probably a couple of days, but all in all, and the color pink is not true to the pink that I saw out in the woods, but I like the results all in all. Then I went back again. Again, you're seeing a lot of this use of the walnut oil recently, and that was reflected because here are these final days. I think, let's see, where did I switch off? I think this was the end of the 3rd week prompt, which I also had posted on Patreon. Then I just went rogue, and I didn't put out any prompt list, and I just decided whatever I felt like doing on any given day. I had a bunch of reference photos that I was knew I was leaning into, and I just went rogue and went off on what I had. So this was another walnut oil study that I had done of one of my landscapes here locally, and some palm fronds, so definitely a Florida landscape there, and that was fun. And then I think it's neat how, and plus I had created a boundary for how I wanted the format of this particular drawing to do, but then I just allowed this branch, these few branches, to fall off outside of the format of the page. So that's why that's like that. Then I went back to my reference photos. And so what I will say to you is I believe in finding beauty all sorts of places. And this might be something that, you might not have picked, or a lot of people might not have picked. And it was a fire hydrant in Korea. So it's written in Korean. And it was kind of nestled into a bunch of plants over off the side of where I was visiting. And like an odd tourist, I took a picture of it and I used it for a reference, but I took it for that purpose. I knew that I was interested in using it as an odd item that I saw while I was there on my trip. And I like the results. I kind of, I use some splatters, as sometimes I like to splatter my paints. I use a little bit of my ink pens, my micron pens on these. A little bit of gouache for the white letters that I was trying to represent here. And so that was that one. Again, returning back to the walnut oil, this was a older reference that I had of an old abandoned house up in the mountains, and I think it might have been actually in Georgia. It's kind of nestled in all around a bunch of trees, and I loved how it looked, this old abandoned falling down place. So I thought that would be a really fun thing to do in the walnut oil. So that's how that turned out. And then back to Korea again. There's a restaurant there that I really love, and I love the people there. The restaurant was built in 1938, and it was built during the Japanese occupation of Korea. And the current owners have turned it into this beautiful restaurant that's set into that time period as 1938. And it has mostly American food, but there's lots of like antiques, cool antiques around the place. And it's just got a really cool vibe. And they have her playing like Nora Jones in the background. But she also owns right down the block a beautiful little clothing place, and it also is filled with antiques and stuff. And right outside of the window of her store was this plant, and her husband had someone had put together, taken this old pump, this historical pump that she had found, and attached it to where it was just acting as a water fountain. And I really thought it was kind of cool, and it was really old and beautiful looking, I thought. And so I took a picture of that, knowing that one day I'd be using that as a reference for sure. And so that's what I did for, you can see there's even, I used a touch of gouache just to go back and capture some of these ripples that I couldn't capture by using my watercolor at this scale. So that's what I did that day. And then this is a persimmon. It got very loose, and I can't say that I'm overly fond of my results. Another Korean reference. Lots of persimmons in Korea. And so I captured that very loosely. And then for my very last day, my 30th day, I did this again, this goes back to finding beauty in all sorts of different places. And there was this place, and I can't even remember where I had taken this reference, but my eye had been pulled towards these old frames that had been thrown away. I want to say this might be actually in Pennsylvania. I'm not sure. But it was an old frame that was leaning up against a brick wall. And there's two frames, actually. There was kind of a smaller one and a larger one that was kind of breaking and falling apart. Didn't even have any glass in it anymore, but there were plants growing all around it. And so that's what I just do for my very last day. Just finding beauty everywhere you go. And this is what makes life so special. It's like sometimes you just need to slow down and pay attention to little things and see how you can observe it, and then getting a chance to actually reflect that beauty in your journal or any sketches or something that you do for yourself. It's just a way to honor your life, whether it be in its new state, in its great beauty state, or in this more older, collapsing, final day state. Everything has beauty. So that's pretty much it. That was the length of my challenge in its entirety. So I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you got something out of it. I know there were a few people over on Patreon that were trying to do the challenge themselves. But even if you haven't done a challenge and maybe you have time later on, you can always reference back to what I have, or you can go over. I have some of the prompts that are for free on Patreon. And do a challenge yourself, and it doesn't even have to be perfect. It doesn't even have to be maybe like my work at all. It doesn't have to be, shouldn't have to be. And just find anything. It could be just monotone. It could be just sketches. Or like I said, just something fun like these little cheap big pens that has multiple colors to it. So there's lots of things to do. However, one thing I want to say before I let you all go is that I know I was kind of late getting this sketchbook challenge out because I actually completed it last Saturday. It's been difficult for me to get the time to actually sit down and take some of this footage to do this final sketchbook challenge review, or this tour that I provided today. And because I do work full time, and I wasn't feeling well, to be honest with you. So a little bit of honesty there. It was a lot. It's a lot working 40 hours a week and then trying to turn around video for YouTube every single week. Although I have really tried in the past few months. I really have. But I'm probably going to be doing every other week for a while moving forward. And I'm going to occasionally be putting out something when I have something. And then I'm going to be making a little extra content, but probably not something that's very long or worked out, just like quick tutorials that I'm going to be putting over for the folks that are supporting me on Patreon, who I appreciate so much, everybody that's over there helping out and just encouraging me in my work and my effort to make this eventually a full-time thing for myself, become finally an artist that I have wanted to be all my whole life, full-time. And so I'll be doing all of that. And so as much as I love sharing with you, I just find that I'm not able to keep up with the quality that I wanted to do on this channel, and I just want to do better for everybody. And so I hope that you will be okay with that, and you'll forgive me if that somehow hinders you in having somebody provide content every week. I know that I followed people in the past that when they went to every other week, it broke my heart because I relied on them so much. But of course, there is already so much content here that you can go back and watch. And like I said, I have some stuff over on Patreon if you want to join me there. I even have a little bit of free content. So that's just something else for you to do if you're interested in learning more from me and how I do my work. So with that said, because I know this is getting way too long, I'm going to end the sketchbook tour right here, guys. And so with that, I will see you in 2 weeks. All right. Bye.